So today we are going to make this pair of earrings. And I've already made the first one, so we're going to make the mate to it. The materials you will need are listed in the description, but we're going to start with a 6-inch piece of 22 gauge wire. You can use a 20 gauge wire if you'd like. It's not life altering. If you use a 20 gauge, it'll do the same job. But I've got two 6-inch pieces for the project. We're going to start with one. And then for the whole project, for both earrings, you'll need 8 14-inch pieces of 26 gauge wire, but we're going to start with 4. Taking those 4 wires, I'm going to bend them in half. So we'll go ahead and line those up, bend them in half, and then we'll find our halfway point on those 4 wires and make sure they're all lined up together. And then we'll take our 6-inch piece of 22 or 20 gauge wire, and we'll go about 1/3 of our way, about 2 inches into our 22 gauge wire, and we'll start our project. So what you're going to do is do one full rotation of all 4 wires around your 22 or 20 gauge base wire, and the goal here is to kind of make them line up as evenly as possible. So usually what I do is kind of lift and wiggle. It's going to bend your base wire, but you can straighten it back out. It's not a huge deal. You just want those to lay nice and snug beside each other. So just kind of coax them a little bit so that they lay like that. And then what you can do is scooch that up and kind of straighten out your base wire. If need be, I'm just going to take my pliers here and kind of straighten that out nicely. It doesn't have to be perfect. Hey Connie, how are you, love? And now we're going to take our, since we're weaving to our right, you're going to want to grab your leftmost section of wire. So if you're left-handed, you'll basically do the opposite of what I'm doing, but we want the section that's furthest the opposite of the direction we're going. So we're going right, we're going to grab the left section. And you're just going to try and keep those nice and flat. I usually pinch them between my index finger and my thumb. And you're going to create a little bit of a rainbow here. You're just kind of going to make a little U-turn. And fold that back in on itself. Hey, Stephanie. So, odd question to ask there, the Dominator. Also super irrelevant to what content is going on here, so I'm not going to really justify that with an answer. Alright, so now we've got one little section, and here's the tricky part. So we're going to go and do the same thing, but just with 2 wires from our top section. Again, making like a little rainbow, and then folding it back. I'm just going to take my flat nose pliers and pinch that down, right? And then we're going to take our second section of 2. We're going to bend across as if we're going to make our little rainbow, and then usually I'll just take my thumbnail about halfway across and just use it as a little bit of resistance. And then I'm going to loop my wires back around on themselves like this. This can be very tricky. Just trust the process, breathe through it. It takes a little practice. Sometimes they flow more easily than other times. Then we're going to take the rest of our wire and we're just going to fold it up as if nothing happened. Take our pliers, flatten them down, and then I like to straighten those wires back to the back like that. And we're just going to keep on doing exactly that until we have 10 of these little loops. So now we're just gonna hang out. And you guys can watch me potentially struggle. And we're just doing those little loopity swoops on the top. And as you can see, there's a little overlap here. I try and make it a point not to mess with these until I get to the end, just for the sake of time, because it's not worth it to go back and fix every single time. You just kind of want basically the same shape. You'll drive yourself nuts trying to, reposition those every single time. And then sometimes, if it gets real frustrating, you can take your flat nose pliers, kind of hold that beginning shape in place, and use your pliers to kind of keep everything where it needs to be so that you're not fighting with it. And I am only going to make one earring in this video. I hope that's enough. If for some reason you guys are like, can you please come back and make a second earring? The same thing again. I'll re-record this if it's not enough. Or come hang out on my live stream. I've been doing a lot of these over on TikTok recently. And I've been doing this weave a lot over the past week or so. So assuming you're not watching this too far into the future, it is February 26th, 2025 right now. There's a strong possibility that I'm still making this repeatedly live over on TikTok. But if I'm not, just comment. Say, hey, you didn't explain that well enough. Try again. And I'll try and explain a little better. We can watch twice. Exactly, you can watch this video twice. Sometimes, it just doesn't maybe film right the first time. It gets blurry halfway through. I wish I had the patience and film knowledge to I mean, I suppose I shouldn't say I wish. I'm perfectly capable of learning all the things it would take to make like proper tutorials, but it's not in my mental capacity at this point in my life. Maybe one day I'll solely do tutorials on here, and my income will be based on views, but at this point in life, that is not where we are at. And that one is not wanting to lay right, so I'm just going to go in here, kind of straighten those wires up, try again. That one was nice. So when I do this, just to kind of give you guys a little more of an explanation, usually what I'll do is I'll turn it over, right, so it's facing away from me, and then I take my index finger and I try and pinch those wires so that they're nice and snug together, and hold it flat between my index fingers so that it keeps those wires in line, and then I just guide it around as best I can to keep them nice and flat to create that little loop. That one worked out pretty well. And as you can see, this one's kind of leaning a little bit to the right. That's okay, because what you can do later, fight the urge to do this on all of these immediately, but what you can do later, that I'm going to do right now, even though I don't need to, is grab that little loop and just kind of coax it over to the direction you'd like it to, and it'll lay just fine in that direction. So don't get upset and overly concerned about them like leaning one way or the other too much. You want to aim for centered, but if they're offset just a little bit, it's not the end of the world. The evenness of these is not outrageously imperative in this specific design. There are other implementations of this technique where it is a little more crucial that they're even, but this one is not one of those scenarios. I'm not going to fight with this one, I'll just use these. How many do we have? 2, 4, 6, 8, so 2 more. If you have a larger bead, you just need to kind of do your amount of loops accordingly, as far as like how large your bead is. You can kind of feel that out as you go. You want it to be just slightly smaller than the perimeter of your bead, so it'll lay nicely. It was through trial and error that I figured out that 10 was the magic number for an 8mm, excuse me, a 10mm bead. This is our last one. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Yep. You always want to make sure, though, that you have an even number, because the way we fold our base wire up at the very, very end to secure everything, it goes right in the middle of 2 of these, and you really want that to lay symmetrical, unless you don't care about symmetry, and some people don't. And then you can go for an odd number, but your goal is to have an even number of loops. Okay. And then we're going to do one more bottom loop here at the end. Thank you, Leah. I appreciate that. Leah said, I love your nails. Thank you, Leah. That's very sweet. All right, so now we're going to do our last one. I'm going to lay that down. I'm going to double check our count just in case. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Now I'm going to flip my wires over, and I'm just going to lift up a little bit. We'll take our flat, our words are hard, our flush cutters, flush side toward our work so that we get a nice flat cut. And we're going to cut all 4 of those wires like that. Hey, Abby. There, amazing, thank you. Thank you, love. Abby said hello. Hi, Super Making Man, thank you. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side, just like that, so we have something that looks like this, right? Then I'm going to take my tweezer nose pliers, which I find to be the most easy for this job. We're just going to kind of roll those wires over onto themselves, just to kind of finish up the job there. Right. Nice and clean, and then we'll do the same thing on this. This can be tedious. Sometimes it's easier to go one wire at a time. If you're ever interested in specific tools that I use, I do have them all listed in the description. So you'll see a link that says tools, and you can find all of the tools that I use. Danielle says hello. Hello, Danielle. What are you making? I am making the mate to this earring right here. All right, and our goal here is to have our base wire pretty even on either side. Well, you just want like a little more than 2 inches on either side. So we're basically good. Then I just use a Sharpie. Honestly, I would imagine most of us have a Sharpie at home. What size wire are you working with? I do have all of that listed in the description, but my base wire here is a 6-inch piece of 22 gauge wire. You could also use a 20 gauge wire for this. And then I have, I have 4 sections of 14 inches of 26 gauge wire for this section. You'll need 2 of everything I just said if you're making earrings. And then 2 1.75 inch pieces of 20 gauge wire for your ear wire. I do have a separate video showing you how to make your own ear wire. That is also linked in the description. I already made mine, so I am not going to be doing that in this video, but you can find that on my page. And then again, I'm just using a basic regular Sharpie marker. We're going to make sure that what we just folded in is facing our marker. And we're just going to go around the outside of our marker, pushing down on the weave, not necessarily the base wire, because sometimes it can like be off a little bit. Right, so we have something that looks like this. And then you're going to take your thumb and your index finger and you're just going to kind of flatten out. And this is going to kind of unbend what you just did, but that'll just give you a more even round situation starting on the marker. Right? And then I'm just going to use my index finger to bend that in to keep that circle shape. Again, you want to push on your weave, not your base wire, because it'll pull it out from what you were doing. You want it to stay in that weave, right? So then you have something that looks like this, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend that left side straight up, just like that. I'll take my round nose pliers and I'm going to just grab about this far down and bend to my left like this. Hey, Kimmy. And then I'm going to take that wire and go around. I usually like to make a loop that's around the same size as the loops that are going around so that it just kind of blends in. We're going to go around like that. Then I'll take my round nose pliers and adjust and pull back so that it looks like this, right? I'm going to take my flat nose pliers just to make sure that that's going straight up. I do want this tail to be on the back of my piece, so I'm going to take this wire, since it's on the back, and move it, basically swap them, because I want this to go to the back. Right. Just like that. So this is on the back and this is on the front. I'm going to make sure everything lays nicely. And I'm going to take this front wire and loop it around 3 times, just like that. And then we'll take this, clip it about halfway across the back. Go ahead and squeeze that down. I like to squeeze these so that they're all even, like that. I'm going to take my back piece and just straighten it out as much as I can. Then we'll take our bead that apparently I don't have out. I like to decide which side I want to show more. Ooh, look how purple that is. Oh, I really like that. We're not going to do that because I want it to match the other one. So we're going to go with this side. And we're going to thread that bead on there. Just like that. Yep. And that's just going to hang out for a second. It's going to feel a little wobbly, and that's fine. You just want it threaded before you do your next steps. And I'm going to take my wire, make sure it's going straight down. So I've got 5 on this side and 5 on this side of the weave that we did. And I'm going to make this line up halfway between, and right at that little split, so that you guys can see right where it splits under here, right there. We're going to take this wire and we're going to bend out so it lines up right where that little split is. And then honestly, you just need to make sure that this cut right here is the same size on either one of your earrings. So if you don't have this tool, it's not the end of the world. You just want to make sure it's the same length from this little bend right here to where you cut this wire. For me, I use this tool. These are Xuron 483 pliers. Again, all of my tools are listed. And I just measure from where that little bend is to the top of this little silver circle on my pliers. That's just how I measure it. You can measure it differently if you'd like. But that way I know every time how long this little section is without having to whip out like a tape measure or a ruler or anything. And then we're going to take the very tip of this, we're going to curl towards our work, and we're going to bend into ourself. Flatten that, and then we'll take our flat nose pliers, and you can kind of just start curly cueing in. Until you get to that little bend. Right. I want it to be about halfway through that little bend, just like that. And we're going to make sure our bead is laying the way we want it to, like the direction we want it to, and centered in the front, like that. Using my thumb and my index finger to make sure my bead is where I want it to be. And I'm going to take my flat nose pliers and bend that entire curly cue up to the front. Again, just making sure that my bead is the position I want it to be. And then I'm going to take and put pressure on the back of this wire right here and the front of the curly cue so that they squish together, kind of keeping that bead in place. Squish that down. We go up to the top here. Same thing, just to make sure our bead stays positioned where it needs to be. And then I'm going to go around the outside here and just kind of make sure that these are pressed down and laying the way I want them to lay and angled the way I want them to be angled. There we go. And then we'll take our ear wire again. I do make all of my own ear wire, so if you'd like to learn how to make your ear wire like this, I do have a tutorial on that over on, actually it's, if you're watching this video like not live, it will show up, it'll pop up at the end of the video. If you're watching it live, just go to the description of the video, and it's in there. It says how to make your own earring wire, and you can just click on that link. It'll take you over to that video on how to do that. But then you just throw it on your ear wire and call it a day. And that's it. That's how to make these little earrings. I hope that's helpful. Please let me know if there's anything else I can like do to kind of show you better, because I am trying to kind of always improve this experience for you guys. But that's about it. Thanks for hanging out with me. The wire, it's a gunmetal wire. I actually got this wire from Hildy and Joe, which is through Joann Fabrics. So I've got a 20 gauge wire for our ear wire, a 26 gauge wire for our weaving wire, and then I can't show you because it's like way back, shoved far away, but I've got a 22 gauge wire for the base wire that I use, but you can also use a 20 gauge for the base wire. It's not a big deal. So really all you would need for this project is a 20 gauge wire and a 26 gauge wire, and you can absolutely do this with those. So there you have it. And then again, I actually got the beads from Joann Fabrics as well. These were 8mm beads. I got a string of them from Joann's as well. So you can get all of the material for this project straight from Joann Fabrics. So yeah, Patricia, after I post it, you can go back and watch the whole thing. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I hope you all have a wonderful day. I hope this helps. Please, if you make these and you post them somewhere, tag me. I'd love to see what you create. I'd love to see different iterations of this. Yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you all later. Bye.